Hello and welcome. If the phrase estate planning makes you picture mahogany desks, complicated legal words, and uncomfortable conversations, you're not alone. But here's the truth. Estate planning is not about death. It's about care. It's about making life easier for the people you love during the hardest days they might face. It's about keeping your voice in the room when you can't be there in person. And it's about protecting the work of your life so it goes where you intend. In this audiobook, we'll walk through estate planning in a clear, calm, practical way. No scare tactics, no jargon storms, just real understanding step by step. And a quick note. I'm not your lawyer, and this isn't legal advice. Laws vary by location and by your personal situation. What you'll hear here is education, so you can have better conversations, make better choices, and work with the right professionals when needed. All right, take a breath. Let's begin. Chapter 1. What estate planning really is. Estate planning is a set of decisions and documents that answer a few core questions. If you die, who gets your stuff, and how? If you're alive but can't make decisions, who speaks for you? How do you reduce confusion, conflict, and unnecessary costs? How do you protect children, dependents, and people who rely on you? And how do you pass on more than money, like values, stories, and intention? When people avoid estate planning, it's usually not because they don't care. It's because the topic feels heavy, or because they assume it's only for rich people, or because they think, I'll do it later. But estate planning is not about being wealthy. It's about being ready. If you have a bank account, a home, a car, a retirement plan, a pet, a child, a partner, a parent you help support, or simply people who would be affected if something happened to you, you have an estate, and it deserves a plan. Chapter 2. The biggest myth. A will covers everything. Let's talk about wills. A will is a foundational document. It says what happens to property that goes through the legal process called probate. Probate is the court-supervised process of settling a person's estate. Sometimes probate is simple. Sometimes it's expensive and slow. Sometimes it's emotional gasoline on a family fire. But here's the key point. A will does not control everything you own. Some things pass outside your will automatically, like assets with named beneficiaries, like life insurance and retirement accounts, accounts held payable on death or transfer on death, property owned jointly with rights of survivorship, and assets held in a trust. So estate planning is not just writing a will. It's making sure your whole system, beneficiaries, titles, accounts, documents, works together. Think of it like an orchestra. A will is an instrument. It matters, but it's not the whole song. Chapter 3. The 4 pillars of a solid estate plan. Most complete estate plans can be organized into 4 pillars. Pillar 1. What happens if you die? Pillar 2. What happens if you're alive but incapacitated? Pillar 3. How your assets transfer, beneficiaries, ownership, and trusts. Pillar 4. Your message, your intentions, and guidance for the people you love. Let's break these down. Chapter 4. What happens if you die? This is where most people start. If you die, your plan should answer, who receives your assets? Who manages the process? Who cares for your children? And what happens if your first choices can't serve? A will typically names beneficiaries, the people or organizations who receive property. An executor, the person who administers your estate. Guardians, people who raise your minor children if both parents are gone. This is where decisions become real. If you have children, a guardian designation is one of the most important choices you can make. And a small note that matters a lot. Naming a guardian in your will doesn't guarantee that choice, but it is the strongest expression of your intent. Without it, a court makes the decision based on what it believes is best, using the information available. That can mean conflict or uncertainty, or a result you never would have chosen. So even if you feel young, even if you feel healthy. If you have children, you need a plan. Chapter 5. Incapacity, the estate plan you use while you're alive. This is the part many people miss. Incapacity planning. Because statistically, you're more likely to experience a period where you can't make decisions than you are to die suddenly. And if you're alive but unable to communicate, two big questions appear immediately. Who can make medical decisions for you? And who can handle your finances? Without documents, the answer may be no one can, without going to court. That court process is often called guardianship or conservatorship, depending on location. It can be slow, public, expensive, and stressful. Two documents usually prevent that. First, a medical power of attorney, also called a healthcare proxy in some places. This names someone to make medical decisions if you can't. Second, a financial power of attorney. This names someone to manage money matters, pay bills, handle banking, deal with taxes, work with insurance, and keep your life running. And then there's another crucial document, an advance directive, also called a living will. This is where you state your preferences about end-of-life treatment in scenarios like terminal illness or permanent unconsciousness. This isn't about predicting every medical choice. It's about giving your loved ones a compass so they're not left guessing through tears. One of the greatest gifts you can give is clarity. Chapter 6. Beneficiaries and Titles, the Silent Controllers. Now let's talk about the silent controllers of your estate. Beneficiary designations and asset ownership. These often override your will. Meaning, you can have a beautifully written will, and it can still fail to produce the outcome you want if your beneficiaries and titles don't match your intentions. So here are the assets to check carefully. Life insurance. Retirement accounts like IRAs and 401s, KS. Annuities, payable on death and transfer on death accounts, and property titles, especially homes. A simple example, if your retirement account names an ex-spouse as beneficiary and you pass away, that account may go to your ex-spouse, even if your will says otherwise. This happens more than people realize. Estate planning isn't only about making documents, it's about aligning the details. Chapter 7. Trusts, what they are and why people use them. Trusts have a reputation. Some people hear trust and think that's for millionaires. But trusts are tools. Sometimes they're essential, sometimes they're unnecessary, sometimes they're a clean way to avoid problems. A trust is a legal arrangement where one person, the trustee, manages assets for someone else, the beneficiary, under rules you set. One of the most common is a revocable living trust. Revocable means you can change it while you're alive. Living means it's created during your lifetime. People use a living trust for reasons like avoiding probate for trust-held assets, managing assets smoothly during incapacity, providing structure for children or beneficiaries who need guidance, keeping certain details more private than a probate process might be. But let's be honest, a trust is not magic. A trust only controls what you actually put into it. That process is called funding the trust. If you create a trust but never retitle assets into it, it may not do much. So a trust can be a great solution, but only when it's built and maintained properly. Chapter 8. Planning for Children. If you have minor children, estate planning becomes less optional and more essential. You're not just distributing assets, you're creating stability. Here are key considerations. Guardianship, who raises them. Trust management, who handles money for them. Timing, when they receive money and in what stages. Values, what you want their lives to be anchored in. Many people worry that leaving money to children means they get a big check at 18. It doesn't have to work that way. You can create a trust that distributes money in stages, like some at 25, some at 30, some later, or based on milestones, like education or buying a home. You can also name a trustee you trust, someone steady, fair, and organized. And you can name backups. Always name backups, because life happens. Chapter 9. Blended families, second marriages, and real-life complexity. Some estate plans are straightforward. Many are not. If you have a blended family, a second marriage, children from a previous relationship, or shared property with someone you're not married to, estate planning becomes critical because default laws may not match your wishes. A common concern sounds like this: I want my spouse to be okay, but I also want my children to receive what I built. That's a real tension. And there are ways to address it, often with trusts, beneficiary planning, and clear instructions. The bigger point is this: when there's complexity, vague plans create conflict. Clear plans create peace. Chapter 10. Taxes. What matters for most people? People often assume estate planning is mainly about avoiding taxes. For most households, taxes are not the main issue. The main issues are probate costs, delays, family conflict, incapacity planning, and unintended distributions. That said, some people do need to plan for estate taxes, inheritance taxes, and income tax consequences of transfers. The best approach is to understand your situation and plan accordingly with a qualified professional. But even if taxes aren't a big factor for you, your plan still matters. Because a tax problem isn't the only problem. A confusion problem can be worse. Chapter 11. The conversation nobody wants to have and why it's worth it. Let's pause for a moment. Estate planning is not just paperwork, it's emotional. It requires you to imagine difficult scenarios. It can bring up old family dynamics, old hurts, old fears. So if you feel resistance, that's normal. But here's what helps. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to do it. A good estate plan can be updated, but a plan that doesn't exist can't help anyone. So start where you are. Chapter 12. A simple step-by-step roadmap. Here is a practical, gentle roadmap you can follow. Step 1. Inventory. List your assets, accounts, property, insurance, retirement plans, debts. Step 2. Identify your key people. Who should receive what? Who should make decisions? Who would raise your children? Step 3. Choose your roles. Executor, trustee if needed, healthcare agent, financial agent. Step 4. Align beneficiaries and titles. Check beneficiary forms. Check how your home and major accounts are titled. Step 5. Create documents. At minimum, many people need a will, healthcare power of attorney, financial power of attorney, advance directive, and possibly a trust. Step 6. Organize and communicate. Store documents safely. Tell your trusted people where they are. Write down important info, account locations, key contacts, and instructions. Step 7. Review regularly. Revisit your plan after major life changes: marriage, divorce, new child, move to a new state, major financial change, or the loss of a loved one. Estate planning is not a one-time event. It's a living practice of care. Chapter 13. The letter that matters more than money. Before we close, there's something I want to offer you, a suggestion. Write a letter. Not a legal document, just a human one, a letter to your loved ones. In it, you can say what you value most, what you hope for them, the stories you don't want forgotten, the lessons you learned the hard way, the love that's difficult to express in normal life. Money can help, but words can heal. A clear estate plan protects assets. A heartfelt letter protects meaning. If you do nothing else beyond documents, consider doing that. Chapter 14. Closing. What you're really doing here. Estate planning isn't about preparing for the end. It's about preparing for life, because life is unpredictable. It's about removing burden from the people you love. It's about preventing confusion and conflict. It's about putting your intentions into a form the world can follow. And when you finish your plan, when the documents are signed, the beneficiaries are aligned, and the instructions are clear, you'll feel something quietly powerful, relief. Not because everything is controlled, but because the important things are cared for. Thank you for listening. And if you're ready, your next step is simple. Write down what you have. Write down who you love, and begin. The rest can be built from there. The end.